For me, the Guardian is one of the more fun characters to play in solo mode, and it is due to his synergy with guard counters, which the guard countering playstyle might be my favorite playstyle in any Souls game. It allows you to punish bosses mid-combo and not have to wait forever, and this is especially true for guard counters with hyper armor and high stance damage, and it's even more true when you have your weapon two-handed with the deflecting tier. Now, unfortunately, we don't have it in the game yet. We do have deflecting with the Executor, but the reasons why the deflecting tier was so good is because it boosts your damage and your stance damage of the guard counters by upwards of 50% based on the amount of deflects you got beforehand. And more importantly, you could pair it with any weapon. Whereas for the Executor, you're stuck with the Katana, which the Katana guard counters are just not that good. But the Guardian does not need deflecting due to his ability that lets him block entire combos, and he also has a unique guard counter with the halberds. This attack does come out very fast and a nice poke, and with guard counters there is a very good chance you hit in the middle of an attack, which with piercing damage is just going to result in a counter hit, which is just bonus damage. But most importantly, with the Guardian, he can charge this guard counter to do even more damage, more stance damage, while closing in the gap, which the range that you do get tends to mitigate one of the only weaknesses of the guard countering playstyle, and is to the point that in solo play, he's probably the best character for stance breaking, and yes, even beating out the Raider. Now, obviously, if people have things like a crag-bladed Starfist, a Wing of Astel, or any other great stance-breaking weapon, it is going to do better than this playstyle, but none of those things are as readily available as the Guardian is with a shield and his halberd. And if you incorporate all the guard countering boosts, the critical attack boosts, and even accounting for the relic perks, the walking AoE buffs that synergize perfectly with the Guardian's blocking, he can easily be the best character. Like if I'm making a solo list based on a character's ceiling, and how easily they could potentially make the game, the Guardian is probably on top of that list, because I've had games where I've beaten Night Lord bosses and I didn't even attack a single time. Now, obviously, this is assuming you get amazing RNG, which just doesn't happen that often, and in that case, you are just limited to a guard countering build, which is not the worst thing. Other classes also tend to fill very specific niches too, but unfortunately for the Guardian's sake, the guard countering playstyle just isn't as universal as others are, and it mainly shows up in two different areas. One is against the larger bosses. Typically, larger bosses just attack less often, meaning you just don't benefit off many guard counters. Also, these bosses tend to just knock you back pretty far too, and even accounting for the charged guard counter, it's still not going to be enough, and these bosses tend to just have a lot more AoEs, and sometimes you won't be able to block them. But the most obvious part of the game where guard countering just sucks is in multiplayer. If you have been paying attention, everything positive that I have been saying about the Guardian has been from the point of view of a solo player. Because in multiplayer, you cannot guarantee enemies be aggro towards you all the time. And if enemies aren't attacking you, then no guard counter. And even if you do get a one-on-one, you have to deal with the fact that enemies have like 3 times more poise. And if your teammates are using builds that don't do good stance damage to compensate, then you're just cooked. It's not fun doing these like high stance damaging attacks and not getting a stance break. Now, typically in these instances, what you would do instead is just like focus on just outputting high damage and not necessarily high stance damage. So instead of focusing on guard countering, you just like spam attacks instead. Which is why I hate multiplayer and co-op in all of these Souls games. You spend half the time whacking on an enemy that isn't even looking at you. But anyway, this video isn't about that. It's about the Guardian and the fact that he does terrible damage. He has very mid scalings, and if you're not blocking and guard countering, there is no reason to play him. Someone like the Raider, who has the exact same poise, the same stamina, only has about 7% less health, but it is completely counteracted by the fact that the Guardian has a worse dodge. But the Raider also does about 12% more damage with halberds. Like with his own weapon, he's getting a lot more damage. And if you're going to account for larger weapons, like colossal weapons, then the Raider's going to get like 20% more damage. And this is also going to extend to the Wilder as well. The Wilder actually gets the most damage with the halberds. And funnily enough, outside of the guard counter, his unique halberd moveset is literally just worse and slower than the normal halberd moveset, which every other character gets access to. And the halberds aren't even that good of a weapon type in this game compared to things like great swords or great hammers, which the Wilder and the Raider are more likely to find. Like the only things the Guardian does well for in team-based play would be helping stunlock smaller enemies like Banished Knights with his passive ability and his skill, and his ultimate art attack, which is very good, but it also is like very close to being completely outclassed by the Revenant's ultimate attack, if it wasn't for the fact that his ultimates does have a slightly quicker cooldown and also better stagger potential. But yeah, weapon usage is like 90% of the game, and he just doesn't do that very well. Now, how does one begin to fix this issue? Like his entire identity is using a shield, which just isn't getting much play in team-based formats. There are two separate fixes that I do have. The first one is just let him be equally as likely to find Great Spears as he would Halberds, and also let his unique moveset extend to that weapon type too, just like how the Raider is with the Great Axes, Great Hammers, and Colossal weapons. And also, just like the Raider with those weapon types, you gotta compensate the halberd damage and stance damage to be in line with the Great Spear damage. So there isn't just an obvious option, because if you didn't already know, the Great Hammers and the Great Axes kind of get like a bit of a damage boost, specifically when using the Raider to be in line with the Colossal weapons because the movesets are the exact same. And bringing the halberd damage up to be in line with the Great Spears would actually make perfect sense because his halberd moveset, as I mentioned earlier, is just slower than the normal halberd moveset anyway. Now this is going to be a downside for some Great Spears that get like a really good heavy attack because yeah, unfortunately the unique moveset just overrides the other movesets, which hopefully that does get changed, but even then it's still going to be a net positive because the power stancing moveset isn't different at all, and the power stancing Great Spear moveset is incredible, unlike the halberd one. So in those circumstances where the shield-based playstyle isn't that good, you can just use this moveset and benefit off good damage. Like a counter-hit jumping attack with the Great Spears might outdamage Colossal weapon jumping attacks, obviously depending on your buffs. Now yes, the Wilder with power sensing Great Spears is still going to get more damage, but the Wilder isn't going to be as likely to find them. And in my opinion, power sensing Great Spears are much better than power sensing Great Swords. And another thing to note, it would also let the Guardian be somewhat likely to find a gold weapon in the Mogwyn Sacred Spear, which is one of the best gold or legendary weapons in the entire game. Now the second fix that I would recommend would make it to where his passive ability block just causes enemies to aggro towards you by default. Like just by activating it and not having it be tied behind blocking attacks like how that stupid relic works. And also just another cool suggestion on top of that, I would have it to where you can add this cool AoE explosion on top of your guard counter after blocking a certain amount of damage. Kind of like how the Raider does work with his skill, like how he has to take X amount of damage to boost the damage of his skill. Pretty much the exact same thing, but with like blocking and guard countering instead. Like it's never gonna happen, but I thought the idea was pretty cool. Anyway, that is us now done. As always, let me know what your opinions are down in the comments below. I will still be making a bunch more Nightreign content in this coming weeks, so definitely do like this video and subscribe for them, and I'll catch you guys around. See yous!